You don't have to say your exact money figure, but income-wise, you're happy with what you've been doing in the business so far?
Oh, very happy. I'm making at least as much as I did in my sales manager role, which was really well paid. You know, if we're talking, I guess, build hours, I'm working half as much.
So, Jack, thank you for joining us, the Jim's Mowing and the Jim's Group podcast. We appreciate you coming on. You're from Deception Bay, West is your territory, which I presume's up in Queensland there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, right in Brisbane, north side of Brisbane.
And how old are you, Jack, before we continue?
27 this year.
Very young. Great. So how's everything been going for the business?
Yeah, fantastic. Better than I imagined it to be thus far. So it's been a great decision all in all, and definitely heading in the right direction.
And what were you doing prior to Jim's Mowing?
I was a sales manager at a big retailer.
Yep.
So I was there for 5 odd years. So call it most of my professional life in sales, whether on the floor or in sales management. So definitely a bit of a stark change.
And what got you interested in Jim's Mowing, or how did that come about for you?
Well, it was a lot of it was sort of the lifestyle side of things. So in my position, money was great. Team was great. That was all fantastic, but it was working every weekend and big hours sometimes. While in sales, you got commission, and there was a way to sort of recognize that extra work and achievement. I sort of started looking elsewhere for a bit more control, especially in regards to building work around my life as opposed to building my life around work.
Yep.
So I moved on from that position, and I'd always sort of joked in the past, on days where I sort of, wasn't happy with work, I'd say, bugger this, I just started Jim's franchise. And back then it was more of just a passing hope, right? But then when push came to shove, it was like, well, actually, I might actually check it out. And then, as they do, I went down the rabbit hole of the podcasts and doing as much research as I could, and sort of everything aligned. And I was at the precipice. I got offered a job, another sales job at a great opportunity. And then also the other option was, go down the Jim's route. And so I did. And it's been good.
That's great. And what was about then Jim's Mowing? Did you have any interest in gardening before, or how did you sort of decide in that division?
I guess the main thing was it was the one that was coming up in my life the most in regards to social media and that sort of exposure. But beforehand, my mum and stepdad, they ran a gardening business in Townsville over a decade ago. So I sort of had a bit of exposure to what that looks like there. And they had success. They ran an independent business, but, that they had success and they enjoyed it. And so that sort of made me sort of gravitate towards mowing and whatnot too. And I live a pretty outdoor lifestyle as well. We live on 5 acres. We have horses. So I'm was already that way inclined, as opposed to say, doing something like cleaning or car detailing. It's sort of aligned with what I was sort of already into to an extent.
And you've only been going since, I've looked here, October 18, 2024, so not overly long. What's been the best thing about doing the business so far for you?
I think the best thing has been the control in the best way possible. For example, one of the things that was always a struggle in my employment was getting time off when I wanted time off. Because when you're a part of a business that's 100 strong, it's in a position of, I guess, consequence, so to speak. It was sometimes hard to take time off without jumping through hoops or having a very solid plan around my time off. So, however, in the business, being able to just schedule my work or work my business around having time off has been awesome. Being able to choose my customers has been awesome because in a sales or retail environment, the customers sort of choose you, and sometimes you get good ones, you get bad ones, as you do running your business. But I can at least filter that a little bit and choose the work I want to take and build the business around my life and my work around my life, as opposed to the opposite.
Now, how's your business currently look like? How many regular customers do you have? What do you try and focus on in your business?
From the beginning, I was always focused on quality over quantity in regards to what my business looked like. Even before I started, as soon as I got my ABN, I was on LMCA, the Lawn Mowing Contractors Australia route. I was listening to podcasts like Luke Smith's, podcast, and I was just absorbing as much information as I could about where not to stuff up. And, one of the things that came up again and again was, getting that right client working for more, not for less, and not sort of going down that race to the bottom that so many people seem to do in the beginning. So for me, like my regular clients, I think I only have about 35 to 40 with varying degrees of frequency in different types of jobs. Most of them are mowing, and that's everything from, the kind of client who just doesn't have time and is not super fussy and they just want to cut. But, then I also have a client who pays for, call it a complete package with product application and more frequent visits. There's a 12,000 square meter garden that I go to on weeks. Every 6 weeks, and I go and do some maintenance work there. But the focus for me definitely has been on the mowing and hedging more than anything. I have taken gardening jobs here and there. I'm doing my Cert 3 in horticulture through Jim's training. And so through that, I'll be able to, I guess, get more confidence and knowledge to help back that gardening side of things, because I guess the real opportunity in gardening is a premium sort of client with their gardening, and that's sort of what I want to explore on that side, not necessarily just clearing out weeds from overgrown garden beds, which is good money, but it's hard money.
It's hard work. How's the sales background help you? Because I think sales is I meet a lot of salespeople who come in training and they always do really well. So that's obviously been a good weapon to your arsenal in regards to how you do your business.
Oh, 100%. You definitely get a lot of skills in that space. Everything from just interpersonal skills and having confidence. Going into this, like I had exposure to this sort of industry in the past through my mum and stepdad, but also through my own personal stuff around, what we do with our property and that sort of stuff. But, in a lot of cases, sort of for all intents and purpose, I was going into it blind. I didn't have what you'd call professional experience beyond that exposure, my own research and the gym's training. So being able to go in there with that, I guess, fake it till you make it sort of confidence, not that I did anything, that wasn't genuine, but that helps with sales, because you're trying to engage with people that don't necessarily have their walls down. So being able to build quick rapport with clients over the phone or, in person when I go and do a quote, or even when I'm at events like, I'm part of BNI, a local chapter of BNI, and, meeting people there, that quick rapport building and finding opportunity to sort of get myself in there was planting an idea, which is really, I guess, the most consequential thing you can do. 'Cause I might have a client who I meet for the first time, and I might just plant the idea of something in their head through conversation. They take me on for whatever their regular work will be, say it's lawn mowing, but I might plant the idea that garden bed, looks like it could use some mulch, in more or less words, and then come round to winter through a couple more bits of idle conversation. It can become quite easy using sales skills to get them to come up with the idea of, hey, I might get that mulch. You mentioned that, or, X, Y, and Z.
Is there so you mentioned confidence, you mentioned plant the seeds sometimes for some other services potentially, because of your sales experience, a lot of franchisees listen to the podcast. What would you say is the most important thing regarding to, let's say, conversions? You mentioned rapport as well. So is there any tricks around building rapport, some advice for other franchisees?
One of the biggest ones, and this is a big focus in my space where I was, and I try and utilize it as much as possible. It is tougher in this sort of service-based business, but your initial interaction with the customer, you don't want it to be transactional or business-based. It is, I guess, a basic concept of sales, but it's one that is difficult. People sort of skip it, and I guess the best example is, instead of asking someone when you first see them, oh, how you doing today, mate? Like, I guess in a shop setting, a lot of people can resonate with that. Instead of saying, how you doing, or what are you in for today? It's about building rapport based off something they're wearing, catching them off guard with, some line or comment, and grabbing people's attention. Because whether it's me coming to do a quote or someone's shopping at a store or a dealership or whatever it is, getting someone's attention is the best thing you can do. And I guess to bring it back to what we do, if someone's getting me and maybe another quote or another 2 quotes, as they might do, I want to be the one that got their attention, so they listen to me and what I say, as opposed to someone who just turns up, does a quote and leaves and doesn't have any sort of meaningful interaction beyond the transaction that might occur, if that makes sense. using something non-business related to build that rapport is the best thing.
That's a great point. It's like an observational opener. So when you go there, make
Yep.
a notice of something, might be the car in the driveway, or if they've got a footy team's flag up, or there's a particular type of plant or feature or something like that. Maybe mention that first before you even go into everything else.
Exactly. And the toughest thing is you also don't want to say the same thing that everyone else would say in your position. Because not only you don't want to stand out just amongst others who, don't have that knowledge or that, I guess, ability. You also need to stand out amongst other salespeople because, there will be heaps of independents or, quote unquote competitors who will do that as well. Like they'll have that base knowledge of sales or that base ability to, have a non-business opening. So you also need to stand out in that regard as well. So it's a sort of second level. Like you really got to grab your attention amongst, I guess, peers, not only people who don't have those skills.
And how you then deal with, let's say, maybe price objections, or if they've already got a quote and they dropped it in and so they've already got a quote is a bit cheaper, how do you sort of deal with that, or how you come across that yet?
So value selling is, I guess, the best way to do it. I always go in the beginning from a point of being a premium service. Like my quotes are high. My conversion rate is lower than what even other gyms mowing might have. That's intentional. Like I said from the beginning, it's all about quality over quantity. So when I present someone, for example, a lawn care package, it's important to run through the value of that. So for example, it might be $100 a month. Now, this is all just made up numbers.
Yep.
$100 a month for me to come and mow your lawn and keep it mowed at the frequencies which are appropriate. But, for only $10 more or $20 more, I'll apply these products. What I'll do is I'll talk less about the price and more about what those products or what that service is going to deliver the client. You will have clients who are very price conscious and price is their priority. For those people, it can be a sort of take it or leave it situation when it comes to quotes. However, for those where that's less important, that's when you can focus on what a service or what an offer does for someone, what value it brings to their lives. When it comes to grass, it could be as simple as you don't want bindies in the grass when your kids go out to play.
Yep.
And that all circles back to, that rapport you build in the beginning and observations you may make, like, oh, they have kids. They've got young kids. There's playground out here. So the kids obviously come out to play. And then, just by observing the grass as well, and, you might see broadleaf weeds or bindies or whatever, and you circle it all back to that. It's like, wouldn't it be great for the kids to come out and you never have to hear about them complaining about bindies again?
Very clever.
And, you sort of work it all in together and I guess, have a sales process that helps you, show the value of whatever service you're trying to sell, essentially.
Yeah, great advice. What type of sales were you in?
It was retail sales, so I sold full driving camping accessories.
Ah, right. Now, great advice. That's why I had to ask. You've got a sales expert like yourself, but I'm sure other franchisees and other people listening will get a lot out of that as well. Now, is there anything else from a sales side that I haven't asked you that you think would be valuable to share with the franchise group? Anything from a sales point of view? Is there any other tactics or tips that you can provide?
I guess, you could go on for years about it.
I think it's great. The stuff you said it's gold. So I'm just trying to get as much as I can.
I think the other, I guess, low hanging fruit for people is product knowledge. I guess the way you'd apply it to what we do is just knowing your stuff. In the beginning, you may not know as much, but jumping on it and just trying to absorb as much as you can. What are the types of grasses? What do you got to look out for?
Yep.
What weeds are there? What products are there? How do you solve problems? That's the most important one, is how do you solve problems? What problems are there and how do you solve them? And how do you help your clients identify that there are problems? But you can't do that unless you don't know the underlying knowledge. And that's why, I guess, part and why I'm doing a Cert 3 in horticulture is to broaden my product knowledge so that, I can apply that sort of advice and drive my revenue up, because ultimately that's what we're here to do by leveraging that knowledge and those services that might be able to provide.
Well, if you're anyone with the horse certificate can obviously earn a lot more money because you've got that qualification. Just being able to go in a customer's home and say, I can see you've got blah, 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 and whipping off all the plants and knowing what's required for them is really impressive for the customers who obviously take their garden seriously as well. And down here, we've done a day in the roads with franchisees. A lot of the guys that go with have the horticulture. Sometimes they don't. And I do notice the difference in terms of their businesses and what they do in terms of revenue and income as well. And the guys with the hort certificate always have a better, they've got a better business and make more money than the ones who don't. So I think it's a great point what you said. With your business as well, Jack, equipment, what setup did you go with and what do you use?
Yeah, so I started with my handhelds are all still the commercial grade still gear, and I guess for me in the beginning, I went to still because that was brand recognition. I hadn't used any commercial grade equipment in the past, so I put my faith in the brand on that side of things, and that's paid off really well. The gear's been really good and really capable. And then for push mowers, I went to Bush Ranger 110As, it's 21-inch self-propelled. They've been amazing. I know most people, from what I can observe, most people go on for the Hondas, but for me, used one and it was a bit overrated. But that's my personal opinion. I don't want to start a war over here.
Very brave man to take on the Honda. Yes.
Yeah, I know. Great mower, but it just wasn't for me. I much prefer the Bush Ranger. For me, with the Bush Ranger, one, I just like the look of it better, which is, I know, pretty vain, but
So what is it? It's a blue color branded one, isn't it? Or what's the color of the brand?
The brand is blue, but the mower's grey.
Oh, no.
Black and grey. But the big thing for the Bush Ranger was the 196cc engine. From what I could find, that is sort of the biggest engine you can get on a self-propelled. I'm a big believer of there's no replacement for displacement. And, for engines, the size of the engine matters. And because I catch mow and in Brisbane, it's been nothing but wet, having that extra power has just been immeasurably helpful mowing. From the push mower, I've got, two domestic ride-on mowers, one which I already had for doing a property, and then I got a 42-inch zero-turn dirt sheet from a friend who spent, a bit of cash refurbing it, and that's going to get me through to the next step when it comes to that bigger equipment. And, I'm sort of at that precipice of I could either go a 32-inch stand-on mower or I could go a walker, and that's where I'm at with that. But that's a decision which is still 6 to maybe 12 months away, depending on what type of business I build up and which direction I want to go.
Yeah, well, that's a good point, because I've interviewed Gerald before, and Gerald's up in Queensland, and he goes on the thing, he goes, get a walker. It's interesting, he get a walker. But with your business, so currently you're doing sole trader?
It's actually a partnership with my wife.
Okay, right, great.
So at this stage, she has been pretty hands-off since we started. She's been working another job while I've been doing this. She's come out and helped me on one big job before, and she loved it. I guess at the start of the new season, we're looking at for her to leave her job because the work's there, and I guess, we would be financially better off if she came and helped me increase our work capacity within the business, as opposed to working her job and bringing in what it brings in.
That's great to hear. A lot of husband and wife teams do gyms. I've been lucky enough to interview them, and it's a great thing to see, and it's a really positive experience from anyone I've interviewed. So yeah, it's a great way to go. Now I was going to say as well, with your business, Jack, you've got a lot of sales background. So how did you find doing the training down in Melbourne? Was it a bit repetitive for you, or how did you find that experience?
Overall, it was a good experience. I guess the sales training was not news to me. There was definitely, good points down there on the sales side of things. Like I said before, you could go on for years training sales. It's one of those things that I guess has an easy entry level, but the skill cap is enormously high. But yeah, it was great training. The general training was good in the sense that it brought up a few points which I think people might look over when they're starting a business. I had pretty good business acumen coming into the franchise from my previous position, but it was simple things in the training which you may not have thought of going into it if they hadn't brought it up. And that's something as simple as subcontracting people right. Yep. So many people still get that wrong. Not doing sham contracting and making sure you're covered on that side. And then the WHS training we had, an eye-opener, I guess, because they do show some graphic photos about what edger and some lawn blades can do to you.
Yeah, I remember I got that I used to work in insurance, and I sent that photo through to them because I'm having trouble with people listening to the session. And I said, you get them to listen, show that, and then I guarantee you get more people listening.
Yeah. I have no doubt that it's very effective.
Yeah. It's not a good thing to show, but we do have to show it because it's a serious thing, and unfortunately, we've got so many franchisees. But you mentioned WHS is a great point. Was there anything else in the experience? Because obviously, it's a long way to come down from Queensland to come in. It can be quite scary. So how did you find everything on site as well?
The accommodation was awesome for what it was. Like, it was definitely very comfortable, and it was better than I had expected for what it was. So that was awesome. The people you meet's obviously an amazing part of it. I met a few franchisees down there and continue to have a relationship with them up until this point, which is, from what I've seen, a common occurrence for, I guess, classmates. Even you interviewed Gary a few years ago. And I laughed at that one because he mentioned someone who had 2 mowers break down in one day.
Right.
And it's me.
Oh, okay. Right. There you go.
So, it was just good to laugh at that because I knew exactly who he was talking about, even if no one else. But those relationships that you build in the beginning are fantastic because you can very comfortably go to them for advice, even if they've got no idea either, because it's the deaf leading the blind in the beginning, I suppose. But at least you can bounce ideas off each other and, build better businesses together and, even work together in some cases.
That's great to hear. It's a great point. And yeah, you're starting all at the same spot. So you're right. You're going through the same thing and going through the same things. And, it's a great thing about gyms is you don't have to, you're not alone. You've got all those people there with you. And I was going to say then,
Right.
What's been the hardest thing then for you? What's been the most challenge? What have been some challenges for you doing the business? You mentioned 2 mowers breaking down in a day. That's a challenge there. But
yeah, that was a challenge, but that's a manageable challenge. I think if I start at the beginning, the first week I was supposed to start business, our ute was off the road, and it's still been off the road 6 months later. It's pumped up. Yep, that's a whole thing. But obviously that was a situation. So from October to February, I was borrowing my sister-in-law's ute. And then I managed to secure finance to get a new ute dedicated to the business, and that took some relationships with a car dealership and commercial finance broker, which really helped me achieve that, because I'm sure, as you'd be aware, most lenders don't want to look at you if you're less than 12 months into having an ABNs. That was a big challenge, just dealing with that, because there was a time frame on getting the car back and I had to have a solution in time for that. Another big challenge has been managing cash flow. It's a challenge for a lot of small businesses, I have no doubt. So learning more about effective payment terms, dealing with late payers, non-payers, debt collectors. I've had the whole spectrum, and in the beginning it was a challenge because I bought a fresh franchise, so I didn't have any clients to start with. When someone didn't pay their $500 bill, within the payment terms, it was a challenge because I had bills to pay, the business had bills to pay, and so learning how to navigate that was a good challenge because, it puts me in a better position moving forward. And then the third challenge was the physical side of things, which, you mention a lot on these podcasts, adapting to that. And, I would already do 15,000 steps in the day from my last job. So it wasn't the moving of it, but it was definitely the using of my muscles. Definitely start using some muscles that haven't been used in a while. So, I'd come home buggered, obviously, which as you do, but it's a great way to feel exhausted because I wasn't mentally exhausted from work so much anymore. It was physical exhaustion. So I could go to bed and fall asleep, not have my, head awake thinking about all this stuff I've got to worry about.
Yeah.
But on that side, with the physical side of things, just dealing with things like conditions like, started getting trigger finger, where your fingers get stuck from being on the trigger of a whippersnipper all day. There's no simple fix for that. So dealing with that's been a challenge because that's can become a pretty debilitating sort of condition. But like all professions, you've got your pros and your cons, and managing your physical health is an important one of this.
And how long did it take you to adjust with the body?
I think it was probably about a month and a half before, I wasn't notably exhausted. Like I still come, I have some days I come home and I'm like, I'm stuffed, but I guess, it's not so sore anymore. Very early on, I implemented systems in my business and equipment to limit the physical strain, like even something as simple as getting a whipper gripper for your whippersnipper, or a Darwin's grip, people like to call it. Like my back is like thank me tenfold for that because I could stand up and use a whippersnipper instead of halfway crouch into the ground trying to use it. So, doing things like that definitely helped the body adjust a lot more, because instead of my body, I guess, the way to put it is, instead of my body adjusting to the work, I adjusted the work to my body. And so, it's been a lot better because of that.
Marketing's wise of it. How do you market yourself locally marketing? What are you doing from your end?
Yeah, so obviously in the beginning I did the basics, which, your leaflet drop in your territory. And then I went and introduced myself to some local real estate agents and property managers, just, cold calling. Hey, I know how hard it is to find a gardener. Here's one. For me, the biggest marketing step I took was joining a local BNI chapter.
Yeah.
That's been amazing. There is a cost to join, but the way I look at it is I got one client from that directly who pays for it and more. It's an immediate ROI. You meet a lot of people through BNI, not even just the people in your specific group, but there's visitors, there's other chapters. There's so many people who you can engage with, create a relationship with, and get ongoing work from. For me, that's been the single biggest driver of work. As opposed to like the gym's systems, that's brought in more. But second to the leads, it's been BNI.
All right, Sky, you mentioned that because BNI is not for everyone, but you've got to really get out of your comfort zone in BNI. Like you've got to sometimes you've got to do the talk. You've got to it forces you to talk to people. So if you're someone who's maybe a little bit more introverted or not as extroverted and you need to work on that, forcing yourself to go to a BNI, I think, and actually doing the activities and stuff is really good. Obviously, in training here, we have Sam from Jim's Building Inspections, and they make all their guys do it because they're a once-off lead division, and it's really important for them. But it's great to hear someone in mowing doing it, because I don't really hear many mowing franchisees doing BNI, but I agree with you. I think it's everyone there pretty much can use your services. It's not it might be marketing, video, services, whatever. Not everyone needs that. But with they've got a home, might have a commercial property, they've got a business prop, all that sort of stuff. So they can actually everyone there can actually use your service. You've got a great advantage.
Yeah, no, it's been awesome. And I guess the flip side of that, I've been able to access their services really easy as well.
Yeah.
In the beginning, like I just started a business. I don't know a commercial finance broker. Like, who do I go to for that? I've never done that before. Or, I need a good accountant,
Yep.
Or, whatever service it may be. It just there's a lot of decision fatigue and time trying to find a good provider of whatever service it was.
Yeah,
just by being in BNI.
Yeah, 100%. And I was going to say before we end today, you don't have to say your exact money figure, but income-wise, you're happy with what you've been doing in the business so far?
Oh, very happy. I'm making at least as much as I did in my sales manager role, which, was really well paid. But I am, if we're talking, I guess, build hours, I'm working half as much.
Wow.
So like I plan to work more to bring it up to, I guess, a full working week. But, if you wanted to talk like, brought it down, if you want to talk about hourly rate or how much you make a day, it's a lot more,
That's great.
Getting an employment.
And you're happy, you're obviously doing it.
Yeah, that's right. Like we circle back to the control and the flexibility, like, I can organize to be home at 3:00. I don't have kids at home or anything like that, but, my wife finishes at 3, or we want to go do something. It's very easy to make that happen.
And what's your normal day? Are you starting at 7, finishing at 4 or anything, or what's your sort of day look like?
So through summer, it was 7 to 7.
Oh, wow. Gee.
It was just so busy. That wasn't every day, but it was definitely at least I'm at my first job at 7:00 and I'm home at 5:00.
Yeah, it's equal in 100 yards. Yeah.
And, it's definitely worth it. And that's just the reality of summer, especially here with all the rain and that. But, as my systems in the business have gotten better, as I've gotten better and more efficient, it's definitely become more of I'm at the first job at 7 and then I'm home by 3 or 4:00 at the latest. And as we come in the winter, it's the sunrise at 7:00. So I don't want to, the grass is still wet from the dew at 7:00. So, I sort of started pushing it back. I might be at my first job at 8 or 9:00 and getting home a bit later. But it's the reality of not having as much sunlight, I suppose.
And how do you find working by yourself? Like, are you listening to music, podcasts, or how do you actually go from you're probably in a really corporate environment before with collaborative with people, and now you're just you sort of in the bed with your wife sometimes, I guess. But it's just you.
Yeah.
So how have you found that?
Well, the peace and quiet has been awesome, aside from the sound of the lawnmower and all the shit. But it's definitely good. I think all in all, I'm either listening to a podcast, listening to music, or I'm just for like 8 hours a day, I'm just in my head thinking about. It's usually something to do with the business, like whatever challenge it might be or thing I want to improve. It gives me a lot of time to actually think about solving a problem or how do I do something better without heaps of distractions. I'm obviously focused on my work, but I've got the capacity mentally to just on the side, how do I X, Y, and Z?
Yeah, I was going to say, it's a really good shift for you from corporate sales, which I can imagine could be doing sales could be very stressful to doing what you're doing. That shift. The reason why I ask, like, some guys find it weird just to go from being all busy all the time and, as you said, thinking about things on the weekend to just you now, a bit more relaxed. The only thing I'm dealing with is the sound of the mower, and it's a completely different world. And how have you enjoyed the job satisfaction of doing the actually seeing what you can see that result every time you do it?
It's fantastic. There's nothing like doing a lawn, and I mean, I don't mean to, I guess, blow my own trumpet, but I just turn around and be like, gee, I did a good job, and then you feel satisfaction from that, and away you go. So whether it's doing a hedge, mowing grass, weeding a garden, it's got a very immediate result, which is awesome.
And what's the key to doing good hedge? Did you like hedges before?
The key to doing a good hedge: sharp blades, go slower, get the right ladder.
And when you say ladder, are you doing a platform? Or are you doing the?
I've used a couple, and I think the two best ones to use is either use the henchman ladder, which is like the one on a tripod. I used that, and that was pretty good. But for me personally, I do prefer a platform ladder. I've got this thing with ladders, and I don't like how wishy-washy they can be. So a platform ladder is awesome. I've got a couple of different ones that common sort of heights that I'm working with hedges. Yeah, it's awesome. Like, I tried in the beginning just to use a standard sort of A-frame ladder, and it worked, but I was worrying more about not falling off than
doing the job.
Yeah,
I can imagine. Platform's the way to go. Now, is there anything else, Jack, I haven't asked you that you'd like to share? Or
no, I don't think so. I think we covered a lot, which is awesome.
Cool. No, well, Jack, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. It's great to see someone. We've all obviously would have seen you in training back in October, and to hear you doing well and enjoying it, brings a smile to my face, because obviously we do a lot of podcasts, and hope that people can get out what they're doing, come along, and that it marries up with what you hear as well. So maybe just before we go, has it married up with what you heard? So obviously you listen to a lot of stuff. Obviously it might sound too good to be true sometimes, which is some of the feedback I get from people in training. So has it married up to what you sort of expected?
Yeah, I think it has, all in all. If anything, more so, like, in a positive way. Because, you're right, a lot of people just don't believe it. Even talking to other independent contractors and talking about, how much work I can get in a day in summer, they don't believe that there's been instances of people not straight away believing that, I've gotten 10 to 20 leads in a single day. It's like, it can happen. Like, it doesn't happen every day, but it can happen, and it can catch you off guard. And but yeah, it's definitely married up and exceeded, the perception that I got in the beginning.
Oh, well, great to hear that. Thanks for letting me know that as well. And Jack, we appreciate your time tonight on the Jim's Mowing and Jim's Group podcast. If you want to learn more about Jim's 131546 or jimsmowing.com.au, Jack. And great to meet you, mate. Great to see someone doing so well. And thanks for listening. And obviously, thanks for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the episode of the More Than Just Mowing podcast by Jim's Mowing. If you do need help with your local gardening expert, please give us a call at 131546 for Australia, 0800 454 654 for New Zealand, or head to jimsmowing.com.au or jimsmowing.co.nz. If you liked what you heard, please make sure you leave us a review as well, wherever you consume your podcast. We appreciate your support. And until next episode, we hope you have a great week.